While President Ramaphosa arrives at the union buildings preaching good governance, the past few years under former President Jacob Zuma have been marred by allegations of corruption and mismanagement. Let's explore this further with Good Governance Africa Executive Director, Dr. ALAIN TSCHUDIN. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Kathy.
Musi Maimane in that clip was speaking about how removing Jacob Zuma was just part of the problem for the ANC, and that it is in fact the entire organization that is a problem. If he is correct, then what does this mean for good governance going forward?
Well, I think that today has been a highly positive day for South Africa and for governance on the whole. It's true that the former president does represent the tip of the iceberg and perhaps the head of the snake. But the party really does have to take a look at itself and promote reform from within. And I think we're seeing interesting signs in that signs and signals in that direction. So I think what we've seen over the last week is the strengthening hand of President Ramaphosa, mobilizing support, shifting us from a divided NEC to caucus support for the removal of his predecessor. And I think these are all promising signs, but this is actually just the beginning. There needs to be a lot more.
What have we learned about Ramaphosa in the past week, just from the way in which events have unfolded, especially from the perspective of a leader and, where he wants to take this country?
Well, look, Kathy, I think initially there was a lot of uncertainty. The NEC meeting was set for Wednesday and then it was postponed. Then there were the talks. We know that President Ramaphosa is an extremely skillful negotiator. If you look at his background in the trade unions, followed by his role as chief negotiator for the ANC, counterpart Rolf Meyer for the National Party, his work in Northern Ireland. So he clearly understands the power of dialogue. And I think the fact that he tried his best to enable a peaceful exit without humiliating Jacob Zuma speaks volumes. The fact that Zuma then became recalcitrant showed that Cyril was prepared to flex his muscle and go the full 12 rounds, taking this to a vote of no confidence if this was necessary.
Some are reading it as an attitude of him being somewhat weak or even apologetic about the ANC. What will that kind of attitude mean going forward, especially where he now has to run a parliament that may include some of those who very well defended President Jacob Zuma in the moments where it was really ridiculous?
Well, look, I think once again it's not going to be plain sailing. He's entering some tricky and uncharted waters. But I think again, to bring a party that's been largely divided together and to rally around the promotion of good governance, I think really is a feather in his cap. The fact that we still have outstanding issues, the fact that some of the old rot is still there, means that he needs to, as a credible leader, take swift and decisive action. We've heard calls from the opposition across the board for him to serve a national interest, not just in kind of sectarian party interest. This swift and decisive action does start with the team of people around him, and there was a call for the choice of people of integrity. So to us, this would indicate some sort of cabinet clean-out, followed by the removal of some key problems, including the Sean Abrahams, and then turning to state-owned enterprises and sorting out the rot there. But in addition to, commissioning some sort of audit, if you like, some sort of test of what's working and how things have come to fail so badly, I think simultaneously we need to actually look. The party, the ANC and Parliament need to take a deep, honest look within and have a look at what's gone wrong there.
What are the key markers of change that someone like you would be watching to see if indeed the good governance walk is an actual walk and not just the talk of it?
Well, look, absolutely. I mean, we know words are not going to sway us very easily. We want to actually see positive change. Now, this is what all South Africans are calling for and rallying around. The President has shared his intention of goodwill with us. And I think the fact that he said that he will be accountable, the fact that he, as a starting point, has chosen dialogue with the party leaders is incredibly significant. But, talk is cheap and it needs to move beyond that. So I think as a sign of that, we've seen what the Hawks are capable of in terms of the devastating speed and force with which they've acted against the Guptas, for example. We need to see more of that. We need to see the president putting his money where his mouth is and actually affecting change. Businesses behind him, societies behind him, but actually they will only move as soon as they see change on the ground.
But materially, what does that look like?
So I think I've indicated already that, to us would see taking rotten cabinet ministers out of positions of power. It would mean bringing people to account. It would mean forming task teams, looking at different levels of management and responsibility, ethical leadership, out with the rotten, in with the new. Principles of accountability, transparency, responsivity, diligence. We want to see a president who actually does that and actually is transformative an agenda. And I mean, there are a few steps that we've indicated already that would go a long way to promoting that confidence.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on to Newsnight and putting that perspective. Certainly a conversation to keep in mind as we watch this Ramaphosa presidency unfold in the coming year. That was Dr. ALAIN TSCHUDIN, Executive Director of Good Governance Africa.